If you want to know how you define your value as a candidate, or even why you should bother, why it might be important, check out this video. Everybody, Taz here, Elias Consulting. Hope you're doing really well. I'm sorry it's been a little while since my last video. I feel like a confession booth. But I wanted to share with you a story today, and something which I hope will help all of you, as whether you are job seekers, candidates, or even if you are not looking for a new opportunity but are happy in your role but maybe looking for a promotion, maybe looking to have a different conversation with your leaders and your managers. This is going to help you out. And the story is of a conversation that I had with a absolutely wonderful lady last night through our Rockstars program, and she came to me with a problem. She wanted to change industries. She's been working in the same industry for 18 years, and she wanted to change industry, continue to do what she did from a functional point of view, but she wanted to switch industries and really follow a passion and move into sustainability. And she said to me, all my experience has been in this industry, and how do I change? Every time I apply for a role, I'll be rejected because I don't have experience in that industry. And we talked about changing her thought process to value-based thinking. What that means is that instead of looking at her experience is not value, it's what you do with your experience that is value. She was looking only at her experience, and she was looking at her experience in one industry as not being valuable to another industry. So instead of looking at just her experience, we decided to talk about the value that she delivered for her former employers in the industry that she used to work in. And it so transpired through our conversation that she was the go-to person when her previous company wanted to run projects in new industries that they had never served before. And she was the go-to person because she had the adaptability and the flexibility to take their services and apply them to any other industry. So here she was doing exactly what she wants to do in her own career, she was doing for her previous employer. But because she was fixated on the industry and therefore her experience, she hadn't realized that the value she was bringing was that adaptability and flexibility to take whatever she does, or in this case what her employer did, and apply it to a completely different industry. And when I was absolutely blown away while I was talking to her, and you could see her eyes light up when she came to the realization that actually she was probably the best person in her company to take their projects to new industries, and therefore she was probably the most capable of taking her own career into new industries. And it was a really, really important lesson, I think, for her, but also broadly, and that's why I wanted to do this video. People will call them transferable skills, and sometimes, that's a little bit vague. What do we mean by transferable skills? Well, here's a very clear example of how what you do in your previous company, whatever the industry is, if you want to change the industry you're working in, think about the skills and the value that you've offered your previous employers and how you can offer that into any other industry. Why is this important? Well, I'll tell you why it's important, and this is really, really critical. Leaders talk in terms of value, right? Leaders talk in terms of value. The people that are most likely to be making the decisions about you and your career speak in terms of value. They don't speak in terms of experience. They sometimes speak in terms of skill set, but you've got to understand that all of these things are inputs. They're not your value. What you do with your skills, what you do with your experience is your value. The results you achieve is your value. What you enable other people or other organizations to achieve is your value. And when you start to talk in those terms, you diminish the argument of, well, you don't have experience in this industry. And to be honest, leaders aren't going to say those sorts of things. They're not going to. So if you want to switch industry, if you want to position yourself for a new opportunity in an industry you don't have experience with, think in terms of value, think in terms of what you can offer that industry, rather than being fixated on the fact that you don't have experience in that industry and considering that a negative. Actually, it can be an absolute asset, as was the case with this lady. All right, so remember, leaders, senior managers, they talk in terms of value. Okay, and that's why it's really critical you start to think in terms of value and you communicate in terms of value, and that should be applicable to your resume and also the way you interview. And also, as I mentioned earlier, even if you're not looking for a job, let's say you're going for a promotion in your existing company, let's say you're having your performance review with your manager, speak in terms of value. That's far, far, far more powerful and tangible, because often value is immeasurable. It's far more tangible than speaking in terms of experience or input. Input, I come to the office 10 hours a day. That's not value, that's your input. What do you do in those 10 hours? What do you achieve? What do you deliver in those 10 hours? That's your value.